Merlin Show. It is your Wednesday edition, halfway through this week. Just so you guys reminders, I will not be doing a show Fridays. I'll be teaching with Larry Jacobson over at UCI. Daryl says he's epic fail on the. Oh, I love the contribution. Thank you so much. But what did you fail at? What happened over there, my friend? We had a nice little sell-off today. Kind of saw that come with the S&P, the Nasdaq, just the chart pattern setting up. But I'm not going to start there today. I'm going to go into I'm going to start things off with just a listener question to set the stage. And that question was from Cameron. Says, how do you deal with all the FUD in crypto? Now, we're not going to address specifically crypto as being FUD. Of course, you guys know FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But I think it applies to all markets. And I was talking to one of my longtime friends, Mr. John O'Donnell, about this topic and said, hey, why don't we do a show talking about the surviving of FUD? Like, how do you navigate through all this stuff, and what are some of the considerations? So without further ado, we got Mr. Ambassador of Opportunity, John O'Donnell, on the show. John, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Merlin. How are you?
Any better, I'd be twins. You know what the job I wish I had today would be? I wish that I was a government regulator that had the power to go after Gary Gensler. That would be my perfect job. I have no ambitions of being president, but if I could just tear that institution apart, I would make me very happy. But yeah, other than that, I'm damn good.
Well, you should do what Joe Kennedy did. Joe Kennedy, what you might recall, was John Kennedy's father. And he was the first commissioner of the SEC. That there was so much FUD back in the 1930s. There were bucket shops and people were doing all kinds of crazy things, front-running trades, trading client money, no segregation. Kind of sound familiar?
Yeah, sounds just like it, right?
Well, this has been going on since the 1930s. So to clean this up, President Roosevelt appointed the first SEC, the 1933 Securities Act, and he put Joe Kennedy in charge. Well, what's interesting is Joe Kennedy was probably a notorious, one of the biggest short sellers in the history of capitalism. And the guy made a lot of money. Plus, he was a bootlegger of booze from Canada. So, when he needed to get his son elected president, what did he do? Well, he went to the boys in Chicago, and next thing you know, they kind of took care of some of the problems that got in the way. But the point I wish to make with that little story is that FUD's been with us forever, hasn't it? Can you tell me a point in your life where there wasn't some element of FUD impacting your choices and decisions? And
I remember when I was 6 years old, putting up the little plywood jump ramps for my bicycle out in the sidewalk in front of my street. I had a lot of FUD back then. I just think, I think, John, what the issue is there's now so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the financial markets. As I agree with you, there always has been. But now it is so prolific that once the crypto industry came to be, they just said, you know what, let's just make an acronym for it so we can just reference it all in one word. So I think now we've just consolidated fear, uncertainty, and doubt into one term. But no, there's never been a shortage of it, John. If you read Reminiscence of a Stock Operator, it's riddled with FUD. If you go to, Masane Hisahama, the guy that created Japanese candlesticks, those are a result of FUD. So it's nothing new. It's just how do we deal with it?
How do we deal with it? And first time I ever heard the acronym FUD was when I started to get involved in the crypto space.
Right.
We never used that term before.
It didn't exist.
But when you and I were on the trading floor in 1998, 99 era, there was tremendous amount of FUD that which created many opportunities. So I think we have to look at FUD, and we could talk about some of today's current FUD if you'd like. But I think we have to look at, like the Chinese talked about, of on one side of the Chinese coin is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and on the other side of that coin is opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Correct? It's a two-sided coin. So I think how we respond to FUD is how we look, how we take on FUD that's going to continue to be with us probably for the rest of our life. I can imagine think of the FUD that one's going to have as one ages and your body starts to break down on you.
John, I think the only time and this is, where the belief in heaven comes in handy, because once you get to heaven, you have no fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Everything is peaceful. There's nothing to be angry about. It's all calm. You get whatever you want in heaven. That's the end goal. But you're right. There will always be fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And I think Big Eb says a good point here. He says FUD can be profitable. And as you said, if you look at it as a coin, where on one side you've got fear, uncertainty, and doubt, I guess on the other side you should have calm, certainty, and certainty again, the double certainty.
And opportunity.
An opportunity. There we go.
The point I wish to make is that we can be paralyzed by one side of the coin, but we can, on the other side of the coin, we could be activated to get into action and use this FUD to search for the opportunity that fits our need and our risk tolerance level.
Yes, totally agree. And if you listen to some of the major market mantras we've had for decades, one of Warren Buffett's one is, when there's blood in the streets, that's the time you want to be buying. And when there's, when others are fearful, that's a time that you should be looking to buy. And when others are optimistic, that's when you should be looking to selling. And that just plays into that concept of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When you know that the other people, like say the masses, are the ones that are freaking out, then that reeks of opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting that one quote about blood in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually Rothschild.
Well,
Well, he backed, as a banker back in his day, he backed both sides of the war. So he didn't really give a damn who won.
Going back to war.
Okay.
You've come full circle. I think early on you were somewhat, crypto and digital assets, and now you seem to see the logic behind some of it. And I think you've not quite into the shit coins and meme coins, which is great. No one needs to be in that stuff. But one day we'll have the conversation about some of the other technologies out there and what digital assets as a whole might mean to our economy and just business as usual. With what's going on right now with Gary Gensler and his onslaught of crypto, which is creating a massive amount of uncertainty. You have the Coinbase lawsuit, the Binance lawsuit the day before that, and now they're talking about temporary restraining order on Binance, which I don't believe went through, but they filed for an emergency temporary restraining order to freeze all of Binance's assets. I mean, you could not ask for a bigger fear, uncertainty, and doubt factor in the world of crypto. So how are you looking at this wave of uncertainty that's flooding us right now?
Well, I think it's going to get more intense. I think the SEC, first of all, I blame government for precipitating this SEC action. The Congress and Senate should have been on top of this years ago, and they should have laid down some legislation. And first of all, get down and start defining what is a security. How do you define a security versus what is a commodity? And I really put the ultimate blame. Yeah, we can all throw stones at Gensler. There's no question about it. And he's just the tip of the arrow. But who comes behind him at perhaps his beck and call for Binance and for Coinbase is the Justice Department. And now we're going to be coming with fraud, claims of fraud. And now we're talking about jail time.
Right.
And what's very interesting from a positive perspective, they didn't lead with the Justice Department and then come behind it in step 2 with the SEC. I think Binance is probably more at risk than Coinbase.
I'd agree.
And I think they're going to have some. I think they could very well be banned, totally banned from the United States. Oof. And I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, anything's possible. Right now, at this moment, I'd say anything is possible. That seems a little extreme, that what'll happen is, what will most likely happen is they'll most likely pay a fine, since they do have they say they have all the assets that they have disclosed and they've been proof of reserves, so should be okay, not like FTX.
Let's assume they can prove that. Let's assume they go into court and they get a fair day in court. Now, you and I have seen what happens in a court procedure, and sometimes you don't get a fair day in court.
Right. You may never get a fair day in court, John. I brought that up yesterday. You said, in certain situations, from what I've seen, and why I think we had some prominent people jump on board the lawsuit that you and I were privy to,
Right.
You had a situation where the regulators just through enforcement action and restraining orders and freezing bank accounts, just an attempt to kill the company before they would ever get a day in court. And the difference here is some companies are rather small and they just can't fight it. You've got Coinbase, who has hundreds of millions of dollars on their books, probably $1 billion or plus in cash, which I can look up here in a second. Binance also has tons of money. You have Ripple, who has already spent $500 million in court fighting this. The regulators have gone up against some formidable enemies and foe with these companies because of their just deep pockets. If it was you and me, my company's bankrupt. There's no doubt about it. But these companies stand a chance, and it could shape the whole landscape of the markets going forward.
And I certainly hope they have their day in court. I hope they have deep pockets that they can finance serious, long litigation. I'm talking about years of litigation.
Yeah.
And then the PR, don't forget the loss of market cap, the loss of credibility that is a shadow, quite frankly, on the whole industry. This 22 has brought so many crypto hopes and dreams blow up that it's been a tremendous black eye and stain on the credibility, and the loss of credibility in that a person is diligently building and diversifying and building a crypto portfolio. Perhaps they're managing the risk by, what kinds of exposure that they want to have. And that's why I think you're doing a great job, which is showing people how to diversify risk within the space. I would just be, the only change I would have compared to what you're doing, I would just be a lot more leaning in the favor of Bitcoin, because I'm pretty much a maximalist.
Oh,
I mean,
boy.
I'm pretty much a maximalist.
Don't tell me you're going to start a Bitcoin podcast. It seems like what happens with the Bitcoin maxis. They all of a sudden, they drop everything they're doing and they go full bore on a Bitcoin only podcast. So you and Michael Saylor and Robert Breedlove can all sing Kumbaya together?
Well, only if I could find an advertiser, but I don't think I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. Right. Not a bad idea. Let me write that one down.
I'll help you set up your streaming service here.
Well, maybe we could combine, Merlin. You could bring me on like every Friday, and I could become a sub show. Why don't you become my producer, and you could become a home media?
I don't have I don't have enough going on right now, John. I don't have enough.
They fired the CEO of CNN today, so
did they?
There's room. Okay.
Plenty of room. Yeah, with my skill set, I'm sure they'd love to have me on their show on a regular basis. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a gingerbread shirt on that says "Bite Me." I'm pretty sure that's not CNN normal attire.
No, that's generally Fox.
Oh boy.
All right. So the FUD meter is way up today on a FUD meter, a scale of 1 to 10. Given what took place in 22, I think the FUD meter's at a full 9.9 right now.
I mean, I wouldn't go 10. I love how you didn't go 10 because there's always room for more. But yeah, I agree.
There's a room to break the meter and go 10.5, right?
Right.
So I think we're at least a 9.9 on the FUD meter. Now that doesn't mean it's going to stay there, because their PR teams are going to come out. I saw the CEO this morning on CNN, CEO of Coinbase.
He's great.
CNN
He's really
today. Good. Armstrong, I believe his name is. And he came on and he presents a good looking, image. He got that great haircut, that John O'Donnell haircut that looks so good. And he came on and made his case. And he looks like he's, young and got a lot of energy to go take on the fight. But remember who you're fighting. You're fighting your regulator.
Yeah, I know. That's
and it's going to. So, what is the solution to this particular era of FUD? For the courts to rule. Maybe we'll finally get from the courts, not from Congress, but maybe we'll get from the courts the definition of a security. You see what I'm saying?
Well, at least force it. I made this point a couple weeks back where, in the argument from the SEC, because Coinbase sued the SEC saying, hey, we requested for some clarity a year ago and you've given us nothing, yet now you're telling us you're going to sue us for the lack of clarity that you have given us. So, we've requested 30 times, and what I really like about Coinbase is they have documented everything, and they're now very public with it. So I don't know if you saw the ad they ran yesterday, right as this lawsuit came out. They clearly knew this was coming and were like, oh, it came, let's drop this video. And it's a great video. I talked about it in yesterday's show, where it's saying, look, we for 30 times we've reached out to the SEC and they have not given us any response with regards to what is a security or clarity. So, I think it'll come to light that the SEC is in trouble here.
I hope so. And when I have a problem with the SEC, they filed an S1. They went through the whole registration process. Yep. I took the time to go back and scan over the S1. They talked about their staking program, which I believe right now is only about 3% of their revenue.
It's tiny. I mean, you look at Binance's staking program; it's far bigger, but still.
Yeah, but in the case of Coinbase, if they had to enter into negotiation to surrender staking, if that was one of what they had to do to make this lawsuit go away, and then maybe throw out a couple of those marginal, shall we call them shitcoins, that they're dealing with, it might be a good day in court. Now, if Binance is going to play hardball and not give up their staking, because as you say, it's a much bigger percent of their gross income and their business model, then they're going to have a much, tougher headwinds against the SEC in court, if it ever gets to court.
Well, the big problem, John, isn't necessarily the staking. Certainly that is one. But I think the bigger factor here is the selling of unregistered securities. That's the big issue that the SEC has. Yes. And, the irony is that the CFTC will say that, well, these things are not securities. They're commodities, and we should be regulating those. And then the SEC says, well, they're securities, and we should be regulating those. So, you start to, if all of a sudden they're declared commodities, now are they selling an unregistered commodity? So Coinbase and Binance arguments is going to be great because you have the two biggest financial regulators, apart from FINRA, that's going to come in here and say, hey, we can't even agree with what these are. So how can they sue us for telling us that we're selling something that they don't even know what it is? So I think that the Coinbase has a great platform to stand on here.
I do too. And my point is Binance is going to have a tougher road to hoe than Coinbase. But so that's my prognosis on the lawsuit. But maybe the judge is going to help everybody come to a real definition and not throw out the baby with the bathwater and define a security, give a very clear definition of what a security is. It certainly hasn't come from Congress or the Senate. I mean, if it doesn't come, and if they don't accept Coinbase's definition, what's going to happen?
Yeah. The rules for security were created in 1946, and we're dealing with assets that didn't even exist back then.
You're going to put it in the hands of a jury?
Right.
No, jury. You imagine a jury of your peers. You've seen what some of these juries look like, explaining what Bitcoin is and what staking is.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that?
With a good educator, it's not that difficult to explain what staking is and what Bitcoin is and why it's important. Really, I think, and maybe you agree with this one. If we look at what's really going on, yes, the SEC is saying they're selling unregistered securities, but what are your thoughts on this one? I'm going to throw it at you and see what you think. I believe that this is an orchestrated attack from the powers that be. We'll say from Biden and other lead politicians are pushing the regulators to enforce this in an attempt, including with the backing of the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve, to push out alternative payment systems and digital networks so that when they roll out the CBDC, there's no competition.
I think you're spot on. I think you're absolutely spot on. I think I don't think there's any question. If you go back and look at some of the classes that were taught at MIT, he was very pro crypto.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he goes into the swamp with his position with the SEC, and he wants to be the head of the Treasury. He and Elizabeth Warren are pushing him. Elizabeth Warren's pushing him to be the head of the Treasury. And so, how long is our existing treasurer going to last? She's on her last legs.
I wouldn't want any one of those jobs.
Well, you want it or not, he wants it. That's what counts.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as he got into the swamp, it was taken over by the left.
Hmm.
The left does not want anything to do with the crypto competition to the CBDC.
Yeah.
Why? That it's about control, Merlin.
Totally.
It's a totally about part of the socialist plan of control.
Well, I don't know if it's
Uh,
I wouldn't say it's necessarily socialist. You could add in almost any political party. You could say a dictatorship. You could say even a democracy. There is that element of control, and if you lose control of the fiat currency, and Gensler said this on CNBC, he says we've already got enough digital currencies, digital yen, digital pound, digital dollar. We don't need any more. That's a very clear comment that we don't want competition. Not that we don't need any more, because I would argue, and I think you would agree with this, John, as well. We do need more. We need choice. As a consumer, I should be able to choose which currency I use, and that's kind of the choice of being the land of the free, home of the brave type of thing. Let me choose what I want to transact in. But if we do that and we give people the power to use Ethereum or Litecoin or Ripple or Cardano for mediums of exchange, then all of a sudden the dollar loses its power, and then the government loses its power, which I think is the biggest problem.
and of course, when you use a currency like Bitcoin that's limited to 21 million units,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you've now got a computer determining the monetary system. You don't have somebody who wants to dilute the currency for some political gain. And I love the fact. One of the reasons I lean in the favor of being a Bitcoin maximalist is the limited supply of 21 million units.
Right. Yep. Yeah. No manipulation. I mean, you can't.
The other the other part that's got a hold of this too is the attack on proof of work
Mm-hmm.
by the environmental movement, and of course that's right in Biden's wheelhouse as well, and the left's wheelhouse as well. And Bitcoin, quite frankly, doesn't use that much electricity when you get down and take a hard look at it.
Well,
And we could have a
it does compared to other things, But let me take a step back, and for those who might be interested, there's a gentleman out there. His name is Jason Lowry.
oh yeah.
John sent me this video by Jason Lowry, and he makes a very interesting point. He says, attacking things, there's a benefit typically to attacking something, whether you're going and invading Afghanistan or, you're attacking the beehive that's in your yard. There's typically an advantage for you. And his example was, you go after the beehive, the reward is honey. But what happens is there's an opposite force, which is the cost of that attack. So if I attack a beehive to get the honey, I better be prepared for the retaliation of those bees and be ready to be stung. And he makes the point that throughout society, throughout life, there's this mechanism of us attacking something, whether it's physical conflict, psychological warfare, or something else like that, and then the rewards for that. So you take the rewards, you divide it by the cost, and there kind of is your formula for it. And he argues that Bitcoin is one of the, from a monetary perspective, kind of the perfect example of this, because it takes a lot of effort to mine Bitcoin energy. Therefore, if you were going to manipulate that network or mess with it or put in bogus transactions, you'd have to expend so much money, it just wouldn't be worth it, which again makes Bitcoin a better form of money. I'll give you a couple seconds to opine on that one. Let me know what you think about it from a currency perspective.
Well, software, I wanted to mention on your show that software is one of the greatest books I've ever read. And after reading it, it's reduced my FUD.
Oh, wow. Soft Wars?
Yeah, that's the name of the book, Soft Wars by Jason Lowry.
Oh, okay. I just read the interview. I'll post a link here in a second for everybody, so don't worry.
Pull the link up at Amazon, you get the book. This was his master's thesis at MIT. He's Major Jason Lowry, and he was appointed by the Department of Defense to go to MIT and study the use of cryptocurrencies as a defense mechanism. And he has come to the conclusion in the writing of his master's thesis, which is being delivered, this information has been being delivered to the Department of Defense under his leadership, that the number one, that Bitcoin in and of itself will help our country and is critical to our national defense. And he goes into great depth in this book. And you laid it out in the videos that I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage you I had to go through those videos like 3 times to truly comprehend his message.
I tried to post it in the link into chat, guys, but I have a 200-word They're 200 character maximum, and it's a 201 character tag. So I will post this here. You can just go to Amazon and look for Soft War Jason Lowry, Lowery, for those listening to the podcast. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Matter of fact, I think I sent you 2 videos, didn't I?
I just got the one, which I will
Just
post
one?
in the chat as well. Also, for those of you interested, it's an interesting take, especially for those of you like myself who think that there is a great potential for digital assets going forward.
Well, what it did for me was it accelerated my confirmation that Bitcoin very well, the highest and greatest use of Bitcoin may be for national defense, and that currency may be the second best application. And with this man's leadership, Major Lowry, this is going to become a big topic, I think, going forward. And it takes all the miniature FUD that's out there that causes fear and angst, and it just reconfirms and it builds your conviction that Bitcoin, not only just from a monetary perspective, very easily could become, over time, if we all live long enough, $1 million a unit coin. And simply because of its national defense importance alone.
Explain a little bit about that, because obviously there's the payment network side of things and the security of a monetary system. But how do you look at Bitcoin as a defense item?
Well, it's all about having. It's very difficult to explain, and I don't really feel that I'm qualified to give it its due. I would encourage people to get this book and read through the book and to understand the full ramifications of it. But I'll give this a shot.
Okay.
If you think about defense, if you think about in nature, all organisms to protect property show force or show power. And his point is that Bitcoin, in fact, is a power mechanism because it can't be inflated, and it's the hardest currency ever invented in the world. And as the world becomes, well, in the case of more crisis or even the potential of war breaking out in various regions, Bitcoin in the treasury of a country can withstand all kinds of attacks that even gold can't withstand.
Right.
And because of that nature, it has national defense implications at the Treasury of the United States. And his recommendation is the Treasury of the United States should be accumulating Bitcoin. The Federal Reserve System should be accumulating Bitcoin. And you and I individually, now, whether that happens or not, we'll see. But it is truly the ultimate and ultimate defense protection against all kinds of future problems that we would have with a neighbor.
Yeah. And it goes back to, how difficult is it to manipulate that supply or attack that supply with the current fiat systems, not just of the dollar, but of any fiat currency. There's a significant vulnerability, not only from the counterfeiting aspect of it, but from manipulation of that currency. And I think that to the defense aspect, you have something that's pure, meaning you can't just add more to the supply of it. Now, certainly, for those that don't understand crypto, certain cryptocurrencies, you can make as many as you want. So if you're looking at something like Pepe coin, which is a total shit coin, you can make as many of those as you want. That'd be like almost a CBDC. That's different. The architecture of Bitcoin creates over time, every 10 minutes, Bitcoin are released from the code. And at a certain point in time, which will be the year 2140, the last Bitcoin will be emitted and there'll be no more created, meaning we have a total maximum of 21 million and you cannot create any more. That's the beauty of Bitcoin, just so you know how it's created.
Correct. And he makes the point, if tomorrow, God forbid, Russia decided to wage a nuclear attack on Western Germany, or perhaps even Great Britain, for whatever reason,
right?
You're still not going. You could theoretically cripple those countries, because what's the euro going to be worth in an environment like that? What's gold is going to go to the moon, but you better hope you have your gold domiciled somewhere where it can't be impacted.
Well, and to your point,
The bit,
fiat. To your point, fiat could get screwed on that because let's just say he goes nuclear on something, and you are whatever country it is, or it doesn't have to be Putin type of thing, but let's say it does happen somewhere in the world, and you need to get money out. If you're using an ATM card,
you're done.
You're done. You have no access to cash. Whereas
But
Bitcoin being decentralized and having, if all the servers in the U.S. get knocked out, there's servers in Europe and countries all over the world. Yeah,
the servers are right all over the world, and you're not going to stop you're not going to stop the Bitcoin system from really standing up from a national defense point of view, and in fact protecting those that have the Bitcoin. So his recommendation is, from a national defense perspective, those that are truly interested in protecting their solvency should be stacking Bitcoin right now, not Ethereum, not Litecoin, not Solana, Bitcoin.
You know, and I'll bring up some charts here real quick for you guys. You can see like some of the ones that were mentioned by the regulators in the lawsuit to Binance and to Coinbase. I'll just go down here and you look at Solana, which John just mentioned. We'll go to Solana, right? You've seen a pretty big slide in those over the past couple of days. Cardano was another one, which of course Jim Cramer called Cardano or Cardanon or something. Couldn't even pronounce the damn name right. You can see some of these ones that are under threat of being delisted. And just so you know, if it does go through, these securities may need to be removed, meaning you can no longer buy or sell them on exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. So there's Cardano was one of them. I believe BNB was another one. That one's taken a big drubbing today, down another 7.39%. Some of the other ones, I don't think you mentioned Cosmos. There was Algorand, I believe, was Algorand's on there. That one's taken a big dive over the past couple of days. So, you know, these ones that were mentioned specifically in that targeted attack by the SEC have taken a big dive, except for Bitcoin, which of course was not mentioned. And Bitcoin, even though it had a big down day a couple of days ago on Monday, it recouped almost all of it yesterday, now down about almost 3% today, but actually faring fairly well. And I think that this is due in part to John's argument that a lot of people are going to be converting into Bitcoin, putting it into self-storage and just calling it a day and just waiting out this storm.
Now, I found it interesting, Merlin. You know, you've been around Bitcoin longer than me, but I found it interesting that I never heard this argument before from a national defense perspective, and I was kind of blown away with with it.
It's interesting.
Very interesting, and let me tell you what else is interesting. This major who just finished his master's degree, and that's what that software, you can get a copy of his master's degree, that his thesis that lays all this out, that's the title of it, Soft War, it was appointed by the top general in the Air Force. The Air Force assigned him for 2 years to go to MIT and do this work. What's this crypto stuff all about? And does it have any national defense information that we should pay attention to? And this general in the Air Force has now become the chief of staff. So he's the general of the generals right now. He's just been appointed by Biden. And so this guy is, and what Lawson makes this point, Treasury, what is the SEC doing mingling in this? If this is if this has national defense ramifications, which his thesis advocates it does, this ought to be looked into and be protected by the Department of Defense, because that's their job, is to protect our country. Biden shouldn't have anything to do with it. Janet Yellen shouldn't have anything to do about it. Powell shouldn't have anything to do about it. This is a national defense question, and he makes this argument in a very, very compelling way. And I want to encourage your listeners to get this book and read it at Amazon.
All right, I'll have to check that one out. I brought it up. I put the link in there in the chat for you guys. It's, you know, you said that Yellen shouldn't have any issue with it, or Biden. Well, when it threatens the integrity of the U.S. dollar, I think that's why the war is in place.
If it attacks the functionality, if we can't trade, if we can't make settlement on goods and services, that's a national defense issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And if that's the case, the Department of Defense ought to have a say in this, and perhaps some of these people that are getting a little bit concerned about arguing whether it's a security or not, ought to get out of the way.
Yeah. Keith says an interesting comment here, and I'll preface this by saying that if any of you have not seen the congressional testimony by Gary Gensler, I would encourage you to watch it. We like to look up, in a perfect world, we envision that regulators are looking out for you and me, and they're doing their job to the best of their ability, and everything is fine. When you watch this video, you're just going to shake your head in disgust at the colossal ineptitude of an agency to perform its due duties. Keith says, asking regulators what specifically a security is and no response reminds me of all the wannabe government appointees that can't answer what a woman is or define what it is an assault weapon is. I would say that this is even an easier discussion because a security, like I mentioned this before, you have a ton of great professors out there. I mean, I'm willing to bet, John, that if I took your number one recommended Mises scholar, the MIT scholar, somebody from Harvard, get an FTC regulator, a CFTC regulator, SEC, throw them in a room, give them one day, knock it out, they'll know what a security is. But instead, I've got a team of over 3,000 people at the SEC. I have other thousands of people at other agencies, the Treasury Department, all of them collectively spending years to do this, cannot come up with the definition of what is a security. If this was a homework assignment, you would be kicked out of school already for not having turned this one in. It's unbelievable, the ineptitude there. So yeah, don't get me started there, Keith.
And to your point, Merlin, as we've discussed before, the other shows that you and I did, Friedrich Hayek wrote a paper in 1984 called The Denationalization of Money. And he said, it's going to have to, we want to get this problem out of the way with all this fiat currency mess. It's going to have to be something outside the system. And he, in fact, like you could almost make the case, he was talking about Soji Tabuchi. It's amazing. That's all the Austrian School of Economics. Austrian School of Economics have been ahead of this for years.
Yeah.
Even Milton Friedman in his own way advocated that the currency never be increased more than 2% a year. That the currency not be, but he couldn't get the Federal Reserve to go along with it. So there's a case of limiting supply. Yeah. The gold bugs want to talk about the reason gold is such a wonderful hedge against all these problems is the government can't print it, and it's only diluted by private sector mining at a rate of 2% a year. Well, Milton Friedman had this idea for the Fed probably in the 1990s that they can't dilute the currency more than 2% a year, period. Fix it.
Yeah, well, what happened in 2020 when we went from $4 trillion worth of M1 money supply to 16 in 2 months?
and by the way, what's the government pushback? Oh, we need flexibility. We need to be able to expand and contract the currency supply. The problem is they abuse all that. It's not about flexibility. It's about their ability to dilute the milk. And what do you and I end up with?
Yeah.
So let me tell you what's cured my FUD. After reading this book and thinking about, I have great comfort in it's helped me get over my angst about all the price volatility. What concerned me at first when you introduced me to Bitcoin was this tremendous price volatility. Mm-hmm. But if you look over the last few years, after the last couple of years, the price volatility of Bitcoin's been less than Dow Jones Industrial Average.
Okay.
And so things are starting to change. But then I have great conviction that we're going to see a $1 million Bitcoin. And with that, I can kind of, with or without Binance or with or without Coinbase, we're going to be able to get through this mess. I just hope I can live long enough for it to get there.
John, you mentioned a good point, say with or without Binance. Nick Carter, who's a guy I follow on Twitter, and he's a very interesting, very articulate guy. Sometimes he goes off off the reservation a little bit with some of his comments, but he posted an extremely lengthy Twitter thread the other day going after Bitcoin maximalists, saying it's the only thing, and then they just most people who are in the Bitcoin space just talk about how great it is and don't actually do anything to build or develop on that community. And I was it was interesting watching him kind of go off on Bitcoin, what it is, what it represents, and I'm with you. I'm on the maxi side of things. I forgot why I was going to the Nick Carter conversation. It was actually a really good point, but I completely just lost that one. But as we look forward to the growth of Bitcoin and the potential use of it is, he makes the point that without Binance, without Coinbase and Kraken, without these big centralized exchanges, the growth may not come because the average person, and I'm going to bet that a lot of people watching this right now don't own Bitcoin. And then you're going to ask them, well, how are you going to buy into this system, which further distributes Bitcoin out, makes it smoother and more stable because we have more adoption. But if you can't on-ramp people into it, then what do you think is going to foster the growth and demand for Bitcoin if you don't have the on-ramps, if they shut down Coinbase and Kraken and Binance?
I believe we need the on ramps, but the same thing has happened on how many other. We used to have a bunch of day trading firms. 90% of them went away.
Yeah.
But there was always something else to come to replace it. There would be, if there's an entrepreneurial opportunity. Who's to say the American Stock Exchange, the Intercontinental Exchange, the New York Merc, the New York Stock Exchange, who's to say that they don't decide to get into the crypto exchange business? Now, the problem becomes where these companies have gotten in trouble, if you think about it, and being under attack, they're doing staking, and there's a debate about, is staking a security? They're doing all kinds of other. They're acting as brokerage. In some cases, they may or may not be trading against their own clients' order flow.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And they probably are. If you remember what you and I learned from the securities industry, you don't think those market makers that were taking all that order flow from Schwab and E-Trade.
They weren't just taking it, John. They were paying for that order flow. It's like if they're buying your orders,
why?
They're making money off it. Yep.
Because it's dumb money. And it's dumb money because it has no understanding of technical analysis or risk management. They love retail order flow. Now, institutional order flow may be a horse of a different color, but you don't see the New York Stock Exchange doing that. You see them acting as an exchange. You don't see the Chicago Merc doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is, to your point, or to Nick's point, yeah, it will slow things down, and it may slow things down. But if there's an economic opportunity, that void will get filled, and it might get filled by the traditional exchange industry, specifically in Europe. Who's to say the London Stock Exchange doesn't decide that they want to, get into the exchange of crypto business? So,
well, let me ask you this. So, I appreciate that. U.S. has been the lead by our example pretty much for most of the world with regards to financial markets. And if the U.S. puts down the hammer and goes after and says, hey, we're kicking Binance and Coinbase out, and they're going to look across the pond to England and go, hey, you and Europe and Japan, you guys are our friends. You see what we just did? We're going to recommend you do that same thing. So I feel like there's going to be this, creating a riff between countries, relationships that are pre-existing. If somebody like England and London Stock Exchange starts to do their own crypto exchange, and the U.S. is probably going to go, hey, you know what, could you not do that? Otherwise, we'll put some sanctions on you or something like that, like the typical U.S. action is.
Well, then I'll have to go off the dollar standard and trade in Bitcoin, I guess. But they could do that, of course. They could strong arm them. They try to strong arm them, on climate right now. But
you got Ireland killing 200,000 cows because of its impacting climate change. It's like, how about the lithium mining doing way more damage for your electric cars?
Yeah, you don't think that lithium and cobalt and nickel mining is all green?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But kill those cows.
That's right, but we can't have no cow farts. And God help you if you want a steak.
Oh boy. Let me see. I had some comments that came through here. Tom's cracking me up. He says, John is making way too much sense. Cancel, ban, arrest this threat to democracy. Let's see. There were a few other ones in here. Rob, interesting point. He says, modern warfare now includes a financial battlefield. Yeah, of course it does. Pentagon has had an active financial warfare division for quite some time now. And, if you think about the system, the fiat currency system, you look at the SWIFT trading protocol, or not SWIFT trading protocol, but SWIFT messaging service that sends money around the world, it is warfare. I mean, look at what we did to Russia. Oh, you can no longer have access to SWIFT. Yes. You're using a monetary system as a weapon. And if you have... Go
You
ahead.
weaponize the dollar.
You weaponize the dollar, or you weaponize the financial system, but in this case, the dollar, yes. So, this could be done at any time to any country, which, if you look at one of the benefits of Bitcoin, you can't do that. You have to have 51% of the network power to start blocking transactions and preventing somebody from using it. And if the system has more and more people using it and more miners around the world, it would cost you so much money to get 51% of the hashing rate. It's just not worth it, which is the security of that network and makes Bitcoin the safest one out there.
I've had a financial position to the miners. I own Riot. I own Marathon Digital. I also, and they've done quite well. And those are.
Let's specify time frame. Those have done quite well for the past year.
Correct. No,
and they have not done well.
No, you pull up a 1 year chart on Riot. Take a look at it. Isn't that too bad?
No, but look, just okay.
But before that,
do 2 years.
But it's like anything else. I could have bought Bitcoin at $69,000 a unit too.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, John. If only you loaded the boat when I handed you that first fake Bitcoin in the office, and whatever how long ago that was.
Well, you should have loaded the boat more too.
I know. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? 3 words that mean nothing.
Well, but let me tell you what, if it's going to $1 million a unit, what do you care? You'll be okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm not. And with all this FUD, and let's go back to our title slide here, which is surviving FUD. My solution for anybody out there, if we're looking at the crypto side of things, how do you manage the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, is you have a plan in place. And if you watch the video I did for bar chart, did you see the video I did for bar chart, John?
No, I'd love to see it.
Oh yeah, I did an argument for what the future of Bitcoin holds, and I do it out to 2025 because I think that's where the next cycle changes. I've got fairly lofty targets. I won't tell you what it is because I want you to see it, but my plan is I'm holding until November of 2025. I'm holding all my crypto, most likely on cold storage. And in November, I will move it to a centralized exchange and convert it back into cash or most likely a stable coin. And I will hold that for 1 year and then start the whole thing all over again. But my plan for FUD is I have a...
excuse me. Whoa. You're gonna convert it into cash on about November of 2025.
Correct.
With a nice significant capital gain from your cost basis.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna pay the tax. Mm-hmm. You're gonna let it correct.
Yep.
Have another 80% correction.
Correct.
And then you're going to start all over again. Is that what you're telling me?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. Why you seem shocked?
Well, no, I have been struggling with the same thing. If next week went up to $500,000 a unit, would I sell it?
If it went up to $500,000 next week, I'm selling everything. I just know bull. Come on, John. I'm not stupid.
Well, I'm not either. But and by the way, I don't know if I can handle another 80% drawdown. I mean, can you imagine a thing going to $1 million and coming back down to 200,000? Can you imagine the anxiety?
Well, in 2025, Bitcoin will be probably about 250 to 350,000 based off my model. And then it'll fall another 70 to 80% over the next year. So these cycles have happened 4 times already, and it'll probably continue to happen. So with crypto, the solution for me is have a plan, have diversification of assets. I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. I know, John, you might be doing that, but I spread mine around pretty evenly, and I'm just going to hold for that certain time. If we're talking FUD with regards to equity markets and options markets, you eliminate the FUD by having a plan in place. And if your plan is proven wrong, you simply take your losses and you recreate another plan based off the data that's present to you. As Andrew said here, trade the charts. That's all I can really do. And I think that's you got to remove the noise. I mean, if you guys saw the idiocracy of Jim Cramer on CNBC yesterday, he said, don't worry about these fires in Canada. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It's not going to cause any problems. They shut down the whole frickin' city today because you can't even see in New York City. It's like...
I live in Charlotte. Do you know that we have smoke? We have bad air in Charlotte, and they're blaming it on the fires from Nova Scotia.
Did you legalize weed down there, or what's going on?
No. It's come down this far.
Yeah.
It may be not as intense as New York, but it's still getting down the whole eastern seaboard.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
On the theme of FUD, my suggestion to anybody that has anxiety about all the FUD, and there's going to be more FUD, it's going to continue. Matter of fact, FUD may get squared on steroids here pretty soon, the way things are going to go. Reduce your size. Reduce your exposure. And that's part of having a plan. And as you brought up, but it's all about reducing your size.
Yeah.
I mean, if all of a sudden, crypto's 20% of your portfolio, bring it down to 5, bring it down to 3, bring it down to 2.
Yep.
I mean, but reduce your size, it'll reduce the FUD because you have less exposure to the risk.
Right.
If you
Absolutely.
reduce size. And
Yeah.
so that's my solution I've come to. But I've got peace of mind now after reading this book, Software. I'm going to have the Department of Defense, on Biden on the next president, whoever that might be, to accumulate Bitcoin for national defense purposes. Read the book to find out why.
All right, we'll check that one out. Yeah, Raman talks about you need lobbying. Well, as I mentioned, you've got Brian Armstrong of Coinbase, CZ of Binance, you've got Jesse Pollock of Kraken, and the Winklevoss twins from Gemini. And what I think you're seeing right now is a very interesting time where all of those 4 businesses that I just mentioned are serious competitors, right? They are fighting each other for market share, for business. What they're doing right now is they're literally getting together and saying, okay, let's put aside our differences. Let's not worry about our specific company growth, because if all this passes with the SEC, our business is done in America. So let's band together and fight. And now you're going to have lobbying. Coinbase has already said they're starting an active lobbyist fund. They're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying crypto and politicians. And as Margaret says at the very beginning of this, your ultimate thing here, obviously with surviving FUD, that's a personal choice on how we approach it. But if you want to make a change to the system, you have to vote. And I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. It doesn't make a difference to me. It's about finding the politicians that fit your agenda, your viewpoints on the world. And, there's Democrats that like crypto. There's Democrats that hate it. There's Republicans that like it. There's Republicans that hate it. So for me, as a voting citizen, which, I look at people who have died for my right to be a citizen that votes, I'm going to use that right to the fullest extent, and I will be voting in next year, 2024, and I will make sure that every single person that I am choosing is on the pro-crypto side. Now I have a list of different things that are important to me, and there's a lot of social issues that are important, but that is one of them that's very important to me. I think it's going to foster growth. I think it's going to foster innovation and put us in the lead role internationally as the global financial powerhouse, but now just digitally as well. So get out there and make sure you vote. I will be a jerk next year, and I'll probably say it for several weeks straight. I'll probably even see if I can get some politicians on here that are pro-crypto and talk about their views. I don't know. I don't stepped in the political route here on the platform.
I got one for you.
Ooh.
To interview if you want to interview them.
Sure.
Believe it or not, Robert Kennedy.
Yeah. No, I've been following a bunch of his stuff.
Robert Kennedy is all about Bitcoin, man. All about Bitcoin. Probably all about crypto, but specifically at the Bitcoin conference, he said he was all about it.
I think he's about freedom of choice. I think he's about freedom of choice with money.
I think he gets it. And I think he understands. Can you imagine, losing your father and losing your uncle to God knows what kind of nefarious activity that came out of our politicians, or even maybe allegedly our CIA.
CIA took him out.
Who knows what went on in that work?
Well, as Margaret says, this topic is more important than crypto, without a doubt. It's about free markets. It's about choice. And, if we look at what this country represents, we're supposed to be the pinnacle of freedom. And it seems like the shackles of oppression from a financial perspective are being put upon us. John, I got to run. I got to go over to the office and help Larry record some videos today. But love having you on. Maybe we'll do it. I feel like we shifted from a FUD show to a crypto show, which I know some people aren't a fan of. But we will do our best to weigh equally on different topics. So I thank you for coming on the program today, and I look forward to having you on again soon, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, John.
Peace.
And next time, get that camera. I want to see you in your PJs lounging by the pool.
Oh, my Speedo?
Well, okay.
Speedo?
It's a PG show, John. It's a PG show. All right, John. Take care.
Merlin, you really don't want to go there.
No, I won't. I'll leave it alone.
You will destroy your audience.
Thank you, John. Have a good one. Oh, boy. Oh, the giddiness of the show sometimes. Anyway, guys, that was John O'Donnell, the ambassador of opportunity. Let me bring up, I'm trying to get the screen changed here. There it is. I'm trying to find John's video. Weird. All of a sudden, John's video disappeared on me. So, okay. I'm going to have to wrap things up here today quicker than normal just because I do have to run to go to, why is it not letting me kill John's microphone? Okay. There it is. We will stop that one. Perfect. All right. Anyway, I'll leave this one alone. I don't have your economic calendar all set up for tomorrow. I wish I did, but unfortunately, I'm slipping on trying to get all these things done at the exact same time. While I do that, I'm going to just show you this picture here. This is the picture of New York today. This is just a crazy graphic. Ridiculously, you can't even see the city from across the water. Unbelievable. Anyway, we'll get that one out of there. And let's real quickly run through our top 7. I'm going to wrap things up. As far as today goes, there was some fairly nice action. I really like. Yeah, Rob, we'll do that right now. I really like the way that things transpired. We talked about Bitcoin. I'll leave that down 2.4%. No big deal. Here's your NASDAQ, which, we had this line drawn at 14,509. And today broke down below that one. I did not make the trade on this one. I was too busy this morning, so unfortunately I didn't get it. Great. Didn't do what I wanted to yesterday, and it did it today. Nice downside movement, guys. You're coming down to the bottom end of the zone on the NASDAQ, which should be right around 14,252. After that, you've got a long drop down to about 13,566. So that will be an interesting one in the next couple days. See if we can get there below Friday. Gold down 1.17%. Today's tail shot back up to that previous demand zone, which was going way back here to April. Not that it's that critical, but we had a nice about face, not only in gold, but in silver. So here's SLV. Long topping tail on silver today. I was looking for a nice bullish move. Again, I'm long from 22. I've also sold calls for 2 consecutive option cycles, so my average is down around 21, 25, somewhere in there. But I'll continue to sell calls against my position at 22. Thought we'd see it rally a bit more. S&P 500. Here's another one that didn't quite. It went right down to it, tiptoed across that red line we have there, which I mentioned. 42.73 is the line in the sand for me before we start to break. The good news is, for anybody who's bearish, is it has not been able to get its legs underneath it. It's just been kind of floundering here 3 days in a row of sideways. Today, a bigger red candle for the S&P. Keep your eye on that one. I'm anticipating a break tomorrow. And I actually said this on yesterday's show. I thought we'd see the breakdown on Friday. Well, we got the NASDAQ today. We'll probably get the S&P breakdown tomorrow. Dow up 0.27%. Technically, no big deal. Who cares? Crude oil. Crude oil is up 1.1%. You had a hammer formation yesterday, although it was not at the bottom of a demand zone. Not that big of a deal. But all in all, a positive day for the for NASDAQ, for crude oil. And then the real shocker is what's going on with the Russell. Boy, we talk about when things break out of consolidation, where's it going to go? And I had this breakout drawn. I thought 1880 would be your next target. We're at 1892. We just ripped up today, 1.85%. It was up over 2% at one point today for the Russell. Your next stop is going to be this previous turning point that goes all the way back into March 6th of this year. So that's going to be right around 1930. That's probably your next target there. Crazy jump up in the Russell. As far as economic calendar, I don't have that all set for you guys. I didn't take screenshots of it today, so my bad. I want to shed a tear. Is there a donkey of the day? Let's do a donkey of the day. I don't have a donkey of the day too often, but let's go to the donkey of the day. And the donkey of the day, I apologize if I offend anybody here, is GameStop. So for those morons who are long GameStop thinking that's going to recoup, it's going to be this amazing company, we've been saying this for a while, it's going to go to zero, slow bleed. It's down an after-hours session today, 19%. Earnings miss, shocker, but there's your chart of GameStop. Wah, wah, keep on drifting lower and lower and lower. So my heart goes out. A tear out there for all of you Reddit traders who are diamond hands trying to stay on top of GameStop. Oh, it's a short squeeze. It's going to zero, people. Ride the train to zero. Quit buying GameStop. Anyway, I had to throw that one out there as their earnings calendar. As far as Forex goes, let me bring up your Forex calendar. It's going to be an hour show, damn it. I wasn't going to go there, but you guys made me do it. Just when they keep bringing me back in. Actually, the real shocker for today, which was a shocker, was what happened with the Canadian markets. For those of you who may not know, they raised their rates 25 basis points. They were expected to stop. So I'll bring that chart up here for you. There you can see the 25. Let's go back to Monday. There's the Australians, which raised as well. We were not expecting them to raise 25 basis points. They did. They were supposed to stay the same. And then you had today, Wednesday, there's the Canadians. Went up 25 basis points. That was kind of a surprise. Tomorrow, here's what you got cooking for the U.S. Unemployment claims, wholesale inventories, and natural gas storage. That's pretty much it. There you go. There is a double base drop on the Russell Weekly. You're going to make me go back and look at charts here. Damn it. I'm trying to get out of here so I can run to the office, go to that weekly time frame, and then I'm going to wrap things up and move on. Well, you can almost call it a double bottom if you're looking at this small range here. But all in all, the Russell, it looks great from a breakout perspective on the very short term. But in the intermediate term, I saw this larger yellow box, which I will put back to the sole position there. There's your weekly. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I got to run. I hope you enjoyed today with John O'Donnell. Always fun getting his perspectives, especially on this FUD. Remain calm, have a plan in place, and if your plan's wrong, modify it and move on to the next trade. Don't worry about it. But FUD does create some great opportunities, especially when you see really big down moves. If it's a good company into a demand zone and you feel long-term that it's going to have some prospects, buy some, right? Buy a little bit. If you're really comfortable, buy a little bit more. All right, so if you have any comments, questions, feedback, email me, TraderMerlin@gmail.com. I'm going to take my gingerbread shirt over to Larry's office and get him set up to record because he's doing a whole bunch of videos for you guys, which might be entertaining for all the Online Trading Academy graduate students, any Online Trading Academy student, period. We'll see how those videos turn out. So thank you guys so much. Tomorrow I'll be doing a show solo. If there's something you want me to discuss, put it down below the chat on this YouTube video. For those who are watching the late ones, have made it all the way through a 1 hour show, an hour and 1 minute at this point. Thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic remainder of your day. I'll see you tomorrow.